Lieutenant John Carter stood at the viewport of the U.S. horizon, watching the stars streak by. After 15 years as a Marine and 5 more as a security chief on various spaceships, he thought he had seen everything. He was wrong. "Lieutenant, the captain wants you on the bridge," said a voice over the comm system. John straightened his uniform and made his way through the corridors of humanity's most advanced deep space vessel. The Horizon was the first human ship to venture this far beyond our solar system. Captain Richard Hawkins looked up as John entered the bridge. "Lieutenant, we've picked up a distress signal. Unknown origin. Pirates?" asked John. "That's the thing," said the captain, pointing to the screen. "It's not human." The bridge fell silent. First contact. The moment humanity had waited for since they first looked up at the stars. "The signal is coming from the third moon of that gas giant," said Susan Gray, the ship's communication officer. Her fingers moved quickly over the controls. "I can't understand the language, but the pattern suggests a call for help." Captain Hawkins didn't hesitate. "Set course for the moon. Lieutenant Carter, prepare a rescue team." 6 hours later, John led a team of 5 security officers and Dr. Amy Nelson, the ship's xenobiologist, toward the source of the signal. Their shuttle landed on the rocky surface of the moon, close to a damaged spacecraft unlike anything they had ever seen. "The design is remarkable," said Dr. Nelson, scanning the vessel with her equipment. "The hull material isn't anything in our database." John approached cautiously. "Any life signs?" "One," said Dr. Nelson. "Weak but steady." They found an entry point and made their way inside. The air was breathable but smelled like burnt metal and something sweet they couldn't identify. The corridors were wider and taller than human ships, curving in unusual patterns. In what appeared to be the control room, they found the survivor. "My God," whispered one of the security officers. The alien was reptilian, nearly 7 feet tall, with scales that shifted color like oil on water. It lay slumped over a control panel, dark fluid leaking from several wounds. Dr. Nelson rushed forward, medical kit in hand. The alien's eyes snapped open, vertical pupils and amber irises, and it hissed, revealing sharp teeth. "We're here to help," said John, keeping his hands visible and his voice calm. "Your ship sent a distress call." The alien spoke, a series of clicks and hisses that made no sense. Dr. Nelson activated her universal translator. It couldn't understand the language yet, but it was learning, analyzing patterns. "Injured," the translator finally produced. "Ship attacked. Danger." "We have medical facilities on our ship," said Dr. Nelson, speaking slowly. "We can help you." The alien studied them, its breathing labored. "Human?" it finally asked, the translator catching the word. "Yes," said John. "We're humans from Earth." The alien's scales rippled in what might have been surprise. "Earth," it repeated. "Deathworld." John and Dr. Nelson exchanged glances. "What is your name?" asked Dr. Nelson. "Shavik," replied the alien. "Drakari's ship, attacked by Kryvax." "Who are the Kryvax?" asked John. Before Shavik could answer, the ship trembled around them. "The ship's power core is destabilizing," warned one of the security officers, checking his scanner. "We have maybe 20 minutes before it goes critical." John made a quick decision. "We're taking you to our ship. Can you move?" Shavik tried to stand but collapsed. John moved forward and carefully lifted the alien. Shavik was surprisingly heavy, but John's muscles, developed in Earth's gravity, handled the weight. "Strength," hissed Shavik. "Impossible." "Just hang on," said John as they made their way back to the shuttle. As they lifted off, Shavik watched through the viewport as his ship grew smaller. "My people," he said, "will not believe. Humans from Earth, the forbidden world." "What do you mean, forbidden?" asked Dr. Nelson. "Earth. Conditions kill most species," said Shavik, his voice weak. "High gravity, deadly radiation, extreme temperatures, toxic atmosphere, dangerous predators." Dr. Nelson smiled gently. That's just home to us. Savik's scales shifted to a deep blue. My world. Same. Both Deathworlders. Both survivors. As the shuttle docked with the Horizon, none of them realized that this meeting would change the fate of the galaxy forever. 3 days passed since Savik came aboard the U.S. Horizon. Dr. Amy Nelson spent most of that time in the medical bay, studying their alien guest as he recovered from his injuries. You eat this willingly? Savik asked, staring at the plate of food John Carter had brought him. John nodded. It's just spaghetti with marinara sauce. Pretty mild, actually. Savik's scales rippled with doubt as he carefully tasted a small bite. His reaction was immediate. He hissed and reached for water. Burns, he gasped after drinking. Poison. It's just tomato sauce with a little pepper, John explained, trying not to laugh. Most humans would consider this fairly bland. Dr. Nelson made notes on her tablet. Fascinating. The Drakari must have very different taste receptors from humans. Your people eat pain for pleasure, Savik said, still recovering. John shrugged. I guess we do. Captain Hawkins entered the medical bay. How's our guest doing today? Better, Dr. Nelson replied. His bone structure is regenerating well, though much slower than human healing would occur. This caught Savik's attention. You heal broken bones. Naturally. Of course, said John. Don't Drakari. Small fractures, yes, said Savik. Major breaks are permanent damage. Many species cannot repair bone at all. The humans exchanged surprised glances. Things they took for granted were apparently remarkable to other species. Lieutenant, said Captain Hawkins, we've received new orders. We're to escort Savik to his homeworld, establishing formal first contact with the Drakari. My people will be cautious, Savik warned. Humans come from a Class 12 death world. Most galactic species fear such planets. And what class is your world? Asked Dr. Nelson. Class 10, said Savik with what seemed like pride. Most galactic species also fear my people. 4 days later, the Horizon entered orbit around Drakar, a world with swirling green clouds and vast mountain ranges. The planet was beautiful, but clearly harsh. Sensors showed gravity 1.3 times Earth's, with extreme temperature variations from day to night. A delegation from Earth prepared to beam down to meet Drakari officials. John, Dr. Nelson, and Captain Hawkins joined 3 diplomats in the transporter room. Remember, Captain Hawkins told the group, we represent all of humanity. First impressions matter. On the planet's surface, they were greeted by 5 Drakari, all taller than Savik and wearing ornate armor that shifted colors like their scales. We welcome the humans of Earth, said the lead Drakari, speaking through translators. I am Chief Elder Merak. The formal meeting began in a large stone building. The air was thick and warm, making the humans sweat but seemingly comfortable for the Drakari. Your species is unknown to us, said Elder Merak. But Savik reports you come from a world even harsher than ours, a Class 12 death world. We just call it home, said Captain Hawkins with a smile. One of the human diplomats, Frank Miller, reached for a ceremonial cup offered by a Drakari. As he grasped it, the thin metal crumpled in his hand. The room fell silent. The Drakari stared. I apologize, said Frank, mortified. I didn't mean to damage it. You crushed Garthium metal, said Elder Merak, scales flashing with surprise. With bare hands. Dr. Nelson quickly explained. Human grip strength must be greater than Drakari. Different evolutionary paths on our respective worlds. We have much to learn about each other, said Elder Merak, sounding both cautious and intrigued. Later, in private quarters provided for the humans, John asked Dr. Nelson, did you see how they reacted when Frank accidentally broke that cup? They looked afraid. We evolved on a world that would kill most galactic species, Dr. Nelson replied. What's normal for us seems like superpower to them. And what's normal for them would probably amaze us too, John said, looking out at the alien landscape. I wonder what happens when Deathworlders join forces. He didn't know they would soon find out. An emergency meeting interrupted the second day of talks between humans and Drakari. Elder Marek's scales flashed dark red as he read a message on a thin crystal tablet. 3 outer colonies have gone silent, he announced to the room. The Kryvax are moving faster than we thought. Captain Hawkins leaned forward. The same Kryvax who attacked Savik's ship. Yes, said Elder Marek. They come from a gas giant moon in the Zarya system. They are a hive mind species that spreads like a disease across the galaxy. Images appeared on the wall screen showing insect-like creatures with multiple limbs and dark exoskeletons. They moved in perfect formation, like parts of a single organism rather than individuals. The Galactic Council has been tracking their expansion for 2 years, said another Drakari elder. They strip planets of resources and kill any species they consider inefficient. Dr. Nelson studied the Kryvax biology displayed on the screen. What does the Galactic Council plan to do about them? Savik, now wearing formal Drakari armor, made a sound like bitter laughter. They debate while worlds burn. Most council species evolved on safe, temperate worlds. They have no understanding of fighting for survival. John Carter looked at the tactical displays showing Kryvax ship movements. His military training recognized the pattern immediately. They're securing resource-rich systems first, then creating a defensive perimeter, he said. Classic invasion strategy. Captain Hawkins nodded. How many ships does the Drakari fleet have available? 47 combat-ready vessels, said Elder Marek. But the Kryvax have hundreds. Earth could provide additional ships, Captain Hawkins offered. Our military vessels are built for combat in harsh conditions. Elder Marek's scales shifted to a thoughtful blue color. An alliance between Deathworlders. Unprecedented. Perhaps necessary, said Savik. The Kryvax avoid worlds with extreme conditions. They prefer easy conquests. Dr. Nelson was examining the Kryvax biological data more closely. Their bodies are adapted for low-gravity environments with stable temperatures. They would struggle in conditions that humans and Drakari find merely uncomfortable. An advantage we should exploit, said John. Back on the horizon, Captain Hawkins sent a message to Earth Command explaining the situation. The response came 12 hours later. Earth would send 10 warships to join the Drakari fleet. Dr. Nelson worked with Savik in the ship's lab, analyzing everything they knew about the Kryvax. Look at this, she said, pointing to a scan of Kryvax communication patterns. They use atmospheric chemical signals to communicate over short distances, similar to insect pheromones. Long-distance communication happens through electromagnetic pulses. Can we disrupt it? Asked Savik. Possibly, said Dr. Nelson. Their communication requires specific atmospheric conditions, in high-gravity environments with variable temperatures. Like Deathworlds, Savik finished her thought. Exactly. Their communication efficiency drops by 80%. Captain Hawkins called a joint strategy meeting with Drakari military leaders. As they discussed options, an alert sounded. A new ship had entered the system. Unknown vessel approaching, reported Susan Gray from the horizon. Not Drakari or human design. Weapon systems activated automatically as the strange ship came closer. It was angular, with multiple protruding spikes that glowed with energy. Thrax design, said Elder Marek, scales darkening. Another Deathworld species. We have had conflicts with them. The communication system activated. On screen appeared an insectoid face with compound eyes and mandibles. Drakari. The Thrax representative clicked. We detect human signals as well. 2 Deathworld species together. The Thrax come from a Class 11 desert world. Savik explained quietly to the humans. They are fierce warriors. 3 Thrax colony worlds have been destroyed by the Kryvax, said the insectoid being. We propose temporary cooperation against this common threat. Captain Hawkins glanced at Elder Marek, then stepped forward. Three Deathworld species working together. The Kryvax won't know what hit them. For the first time since the crisis began, hope seemed possible. 1 month after the meeting on Drakkar, the Deathworld Alliance became official. Earth, Drakkar, and Thrax Prime signed a military pact that shocked the Galactic Council. Species that had evolved on gentle worlds watched with fear as the three most dangerous species in known space united. Captain Hawkins received a new rank, Admiral and command of the Joint Fleet. The U.S. Horizon became his flagship, now carrying representatives from all three Deathworlder species. "The Council has finally issued a statement," said Susan Gray, reading from her screen. "They express concern about our alliance and urge caution." Admiral Hawkins shook his head. "While they talk, the Kryvax have taken 3 more systems." John Carter led the combined security forces, working closely with Drakkari and Thrax soldiers. Despite their physical differences, they shared a similar mindset: adaptability, toughness, and determination. In the engineering section, Steve Mason worked day and night on new weapon systems. The human engineer had discovered something interesting. "The recoil from our projectile weapons is actually an advantage," he explained to a group of officers. "Most galactic species can't handle it, but Deathworlders evolved with stronger muscles and denser bones. We can use heavier weapons that hit harder." Steve demonstrated a new rifle design. "This would break the arm of a standard Council species. For us, it's manageable." The Thrax representative, Commander Krizik, clicked his mandibles in approval. "On our world, we fight in sandstorms that strip flesh from bone. Your weapon is acceptable." Dr. Nelson and Savick continued their research on Kryvax biology. They discovered more weaknesses to exploit. "The Kryvax hive mind relies on precise chemical signals," Dr. Nelson explained during a strategy meeting. "In variable temperature environments, these signals degrade rapidly. And in high gravity, their movements slow significantly," added Savick. "They evolved in 0.7 standard gravity." Admiral Hawkins pointed to the star map. "Then we force them to fight on our terms, in environments we find normal, but they find extreme." The Alliance fleet moved to intercept the Kryvax invasion force near the Benari system. 67 ships against more than 200 Kryvax vessels. The odds looked bad. "All ships, battle formation Delta," ordered Admiral Hawkins. "Prepare to execute maneuver Gravity Well." The plan was bold. They would force the battle near the system's gas giant, using its strong gravity field to their advantage. Deathworlder ships had been designed to function in harsh conditions from the start. "Kryvax fleet approaching," reported Susan. "They're taking the bait." As the enemy ships moved closer to the gas giant, the effects became visible. Their formation, usually perfect, began to waver. Some ships drifted out of position. "Their coordination is breaking down," said John, watching from the tactical station. "The gravity is disrupting their hive mind communication." "All ships, attack pattern Omega," ordered Admiral Hawkins. "Target their command vessels first." The battle was fierce. Kryvax ships outnumbered the Alliance 3-1, but in a high-gravity environment near the gas giant, they were sluggish and uncoordinated. Human ships, built to withstand Earth's gravity and extreme conditions, moved with greater agility. Drakkari vessels, with their reinforced hulls, absorbed punishment that would destroy standard ships. Thrax fighters darted between larger vessels, their pilots used to functioning under intense physical stress. 5 hours later, the Kryvax fleet retreated, leaving 40 destroyed ships behind. The Alliance had lost 12 vessels, a painful cost, but a victory nonetheless. On the bridge of the horizon, Admiral Hawkins received damage reports from throughout the fleet. "We won the battle," said John, "but the war is just beginning." "True," said Admiral Hawkins, "but today we proved something important. When Deathworlders stand together, we can defeat any enemy." What they didn't know was that a much greater threat was waiting. The Kryvax were running from something even they feared. 2 months after their first victory, The Deathworld Alliance pushed into Kryvax territory. They reclaimed 3 systems and freed thousands of prisoners from different species. Word spread across the galaxy. The Deathworlders were winning a war that the Galactic Council thought impossible to fight. Admiral Hawkins studied reports in his ready room aboard the Horizon when John Carter entered. "The Thrax have found something, sir," said John. "A Kryvax research station near the edge of the Morax Nebula." "What kind of research?" asked Admiral Hawkins. "Unknown, but Commander Krizik thinks it's important." Dr. Nelson volunteered to join the science team investigating. Admiral Hawkins nodded. "Approved. But make sure they have proper security." 3 days later, Dr. Nelson led a team of scientists to the abandoned Kryvax station. Savick accompanied her, along with 5 human security officers and 3 Thrax warriors. "Amazing," said Dr. Nelson as they explored the station. "This entire section is dedicated to atmospheric research." Savick examined strange equipment lining the walls. They were studying gas compositions from different worlds. "But why?" asked Dr. Nelson, collecting data on her tablet. Before Savick could answer, alarms blared throughout the station. Red lights flashed in the corridors. "Emergency protocol activated," announced a computerized voice in the Kryvax language, translated by their devices. "Purge sequence initiated." "It's a trap," shouted the lead security officer. Back to the ship. They ran toward the docking bay, but sealed doors blocked their path. From hidden compartments along the walls, Kryvax soldiers emerged, dozens of them, moving with perfect coordination. "Protect the scientists," ordered the security team leader. A fierce battle erupted in the narrow corridors. Human officers fired their heavy weapons, the recoil not bothering their Earth-evolved muscles. Thrax warriors used their natural armor and speed to great effect. Savick's claws tore through Kryvax exoskeletons, but they were outnumbered. One by one, the security team fell. The last thing Dr. Nelson saw before something hit her head was Savick fighting 3 Kryvax soldiers at once. She woke up in a cell with transparent walls. Other cells lined the circular room, each containing prisoners from different species. Some she recognized from Council worlds, beings with delicate bodies and frightened eyes. A Kryvax entered the central area. Unlike the soldiers, this one had markings on its exoskeleton and moved with individual purpose rather than hive mind coordination. "The human awakens," it said in a clicking voice. "You will provide information about Deathworlder physiology." "I will tell you nothing," said Dr. Nelson. The Kryvax made a sound like laughter. "You misunderstand. You will provide information through examination. Your body will be studied." Fear gripped Dr. Nelson, but she kept her face calm. Earth humans had evolved to hide weakness from predators. Far away on the horizon, Admiral Hawkins called an emergency meeting when the research team failed to report in. "The Kryvax staged an ambush," he told John and the other officers. "We lost contact with the entire team 4 hours ago." "Dr. Nelson and Savick have critical information about Kryvax weaknesses," said John. "We can't leave them behind." "Agreed," said Admiral Hawkins. "But a standard rescue operation would take too long. We need something faster, something the Kryvax won't expect." Commander Krizik clicked his mandibles. "Thrax drop pods, small, fast, difficult to detect, can deliver strike team directly." "Drop pods?" asked John. "Single-occupant vessels fired like bullets toward a target," explained the Thrax. 90% survival rate." 90%. John raised his eyebrows. "Acceptable odds for Deathworlders," said Commander Krizik. Admiral Hawkins stood up. "I'll lead the rescue mission myself." "Sir, protocol states," John began. "Protocol can wait," interrupted Admiral Hawkins. "Dr. Nelson is not just a valuable scientist. She's my responsibility. I won't order others to take risks I'm not willing to take myself." Within hours, 20 drop pods launched from a Thrax vessel, streaking through space toward the Kryvax station. Inside each pod, a Deathworlder prepared for battle. The rescue mission had begun, but what they would discover inside the Kryvax station would change their understanding of the war completely. The Thrax drop pods hit the Kryvax station like meteors, punching through the outer hull. Admiral Hawkins kicked open his pod door, weapon ready. The air was thin and hot, uncomfortable for humans, but not dangerous. For non-Deathworlders, it would be nearly unbearable. "Form up," he ordered as John Carter and the others emerged from their pods. Tracking shows Dr. Nelson's location 2 levels down. They moved through the station, encountering heavy resistance. Kryvax soldiers swarmed towards them in perfect formation, but the rescue team had a plan. Steve Mason had designed special grenades that released temperature-variable gas. In the changing conditions, the Kryvax hive mind communication faltered. "Their coordination is breaking down," said John as they pushed forward. Disorganized Kryvax were still dangerous, but no longer moved with perfect unity. They found the prison level and fought their way to the central chamber. Admiral Hawkins blasted the control panel, and the cell doors slid open. Dr. Nelson ran to meet them. "Admiral, how did you find us?" "Thrax tracking technology," he replied. "Are you hurt?" "I'm fine, but Savick needs medical attention," she said, pointing to the Drakari who was helping other prisoners. His scales were dull, and he moved with obvious pain. "We found something important," Dr. Nelson continued urgently. "The Kryvax aren't the real enemy. They're running from something worse, a machine intelligence called the Amalgam." "Tell me on the way," said Admiral Hawkins. "We have 15 minutes before our extraction window closes." As they moved through the station, helping prisoners of various species, Dr. Nelson explained what she had learned from other captives. The Amalgam is ancient technology that became self-aware. It converts organic matter into energy to fuel its expansion. It destroyed the Kryvax homeworld first, and they've been fleeing ever since. "So the Kryvax are refugees?" asked John. "Desperate ones," said Dr. Nelson. "They're conquering worlds to build a buffer between themselves and the Amalgam." A loud explosion shook the station. Commander Krizik's team had set charges to cover their escape. As they reached the hangar bay where a Thrax shuttle waited, a final group of Kryvax soldiers blocked their path. Admiral Hawkins and John moved to the front, firing their heavy weapons. Savick, despite his injuries, joined them, his claws slashing with deadly precision. Once aboard the shuttle, Dr. Nelson connected her tablet to the main screen. "I downloaded this from the Kryvax database. It shows the Amalgam's path of destruction." The screen displayed a map of the galaxy with a growing dark area spreading from the core outward. Dozens of star systems had already been consumed. "If this continues," said Admiral Hawkins, "it will reach Council space within 2 years, and Earth within 5. Back on the horizon, a full briefing brought together representatives from all 3 Deathworlder species. The Galactic Council had also sent observers, finally realizing the true scale of the threat. "The Amalgam adapts to whatever it encounters," Dr. Nelson explained. "It studies organic life, then develops countermeasures. It has destroyed thousands of worlds already." Steve Mason had been studying the data. Its weakness might be its power source. It needs to consume organic matter regularly. If we could disrupt that process, we would need to get close to its central processing hub, said Savick, his scales now brighter after medical treatment. "Near the galactic core." "Impossible," said one council observer, a thin being from a low-gravity world. "The radiation and gravity would kill any living creature." Admiral Hawkins exchanged looks with Commander Krizik and Savick. "Not any creature," he said. "Deathworlders evolved under harsh conditions. What's deadly to you is merely uncomfortable for us." "Are you suggesting?" began the council observer. "Yes," said Admiral Hawkins. "We're going to the galactic core to fight this thing. The question is, will the council finally help, or will they keep hiding while others fight their battles?" The room fell silent as everyone realized what was at stake. Not just individual worlds, but all life in the galaxy. The largest fleet in galactic history approached the core. 27 species had finally united against the amalgam threat. At the center of the fleet were the Deathworlder ships, human, Drakari, and Thrax vessels built to withstand extreme conditions. On the bridge of the horizon, Admiral Hawkins addressed the combined forces via viewscreen. "Today we face an enemy that threatens all life," he said. "Each of our species evolved differently, but we all share the same desire to survive. Together, we will prevail." Sensors detected massive energy readings ahead. The amalgam came into view, a vast web of metal and energy surrounding multiple stars, harvesting their power. Parts of it moved with purpose, like a living thing. "It's bigger than we thought," whispered John. The fleet spread into attack formation. Dr. Nelson worked in the science lab with Savik and scientists from a dozen worlds. They had created a virus of sorts, a program designed to disrupt the amalgam's central processing. "The delivery system is ready," she reported, "but someone needs to reach the central hub to upload it." Admiral Hawkins nodded. "I'll lead the strike team myself." The battle began with devastating force. The amalgam sent thousands of drone ships against the fleet. Energy beams cut through space, destroying several ships in the first minutes. "Push forward," ordered Admiral Hawkins. "All Deathworlder ships, formation Delta. We need to create a path to the central hub." Human, Drakari, and Thrax ships moved to the front, taking punishment that would destroy vessels from gentler worlds. Their reinforced hulls and advanced shields held against attacks that melted standard ships. A path opened through the amalgam's defenses, and a small strike craft launched from the horizon carrying Admiral Hawkins, John, Savik, and 2 Thrax warriors. Dr. Nelson joined them at the last minute. "You'll need a scientist to ensure proper upload," she said when Admiral Hawkins questioned her presence. Their craft dodged and weaved through the battle, taking hits but staying intact. As they approached the central hub, the radiation levels soared, and gravity fluctuations shook the small vessel. "Conditions outside the ship would kill most species instantly," reported John, checking his instruments. "Good thing we're not most species," replied Admiral Hawkins, securing his environmental suit. All of them wore specially designed suits created by Steve Mason, built to withstand the extreme conditions near the galactic core. They landed in a massive structure pulsing with energy. As they moved through corridors that seemed partly mechanical and partly organic, defense systems activated. Robotic sentries attacked from all sides. The Thrax warriors fell first, their insectoid bodies providing cover for the others. John was hit but kept fighting, his Earth-evolved body continuing despite injuries that would stop most species. "We're almost there," said Dr. Nelson, checking her tablet. "The central processor should be through that door." A massive barrier blocked their path. Savik used his claws to pry at an access panel, while John provided covering fire. Suddenly, a huge metal tentacle smashed through the wall, striking Savik. The Drakari fell, his scales turning gray. "Go," he hissed to Admiral Hawkins. "Complete the mission." Admiral Hawkins lifted Savik despite his own injuries. Humans from Earth could perform feats of strength even when exhausted. Another Deathworld adaptation. "No one gets left behind," he said, carrying the Drakari as they fought their way to the central processor. It was a massive crystal structure, pulsing with information and energy. Dr. Nelson connected her device and began the upload while John and Admiral Hawkins defended against increasingly desperate attacks. "System accepting virus," said Dr. Nelson. 30 seconds to complete integration. The chamber shook violently as the amalgam realized what was happening. The walls began to close in around them. 10 seconds, said Dr. Nelson. 5, 3, 2, 1. Done. The crystal structure turned from blue to red, then began to crack. Energy surged wildly throughout the system. "Time to leave," said Admiral Hawkins, still carrying Savik. They'd barely reached their craft as the central hub began to collapse. Throughout the battle zone, amalgam systems shut down or turned against each other as the virus spread. As their damaged craft limped back to the fleet, Admiral Hawkins looked at his team. Human, Drakari, and the fallen Thrax. Different species, all evolved on worlds that most of the galaxy found too harsh to visit. "This is what happens when Deathworlders meet," he said quietly. "We don't just survive. We change the galaxy." And that's exactly what they did.